After my previous marketplace motor turned out to be damaged, the seller offered me this one for just $50. It's a 1977 Archimedes Volvo Penta 700, a 900 cubic centimeters 3-cylinder outboard. Today, I'll see if I can bring it back to life. At first glance, there are several obvious problems. A seized starter, deteriorated wiring, a broken fuel pump filter housing, and a damaged cross-fitting in the fuel line. Judging by how long the motor has been sitting, the impeller may be damaged as well. I'll start by cleaning the carburetors. What concerns me a little is that both carburetors are covered in metal shavings, even on the inside. The float bowl gasket was badly deteriorated, so I replaced it with a new one. Next up is the pulse-operated fuel pump. I'll take it completely apart and give it a thorough cleaning. I tried everywhere to find this plastic part of the pump filter but had no luck, so I turned to PCBWay.com, the sponsor of today's video. PCBWay is best known for manufacturing printed circuit boards, but they offer much more than that. They can also produce custom parts using CNC machining, 3D printing, injection molding, and vacuum casting. To use their services, simply go to PCBWay.com and choose the manufacturing process that best suits your part. Then upload your design files, choose the specifications for your part, and submit your request. One of their engineers will review the design and contact you if anything needs clarification. And in my case, the finished part arrived about a week later. There was originally a gasket under this part, so I'll make a new one from gasket material. And I'll transfer the inner filter screen from the old part. I'll also replace the fuel filter and all the fuel lines. Next, I'll take a look at the starter and see why it's stuck. Judging by all this rust, the years this motor spent sitting outside definitely took their toll. After a thorough cleanup, I put everything back together. Before reinstalling the starter, I'll clean the mounting surfaces to make sure it has a solid ground connection. Next, I'll install new spark plugs. But first, I'll spray a little fuel and oil mixture into the cylinders to provide some lubrication during the first startup attempt. I'll also spray the ignition connections with electrical contact cleaner. I'll connect the positive battery cable to the starter solenoid. Since the original control wiring has fallen apart, I'll use the cable from the previous video to control the engine. I noticed two fuses while connecting the wiring, so I'll check them and clean the contacts. Next up, I'll inspect the impeller. But I can already hear the rubber impeller squeaking as I turn the engine over, so it seems to be intact and rotating. But I'll open up the lower unit anyway and take a look. But before I can remove the lower unit, I need to disconnect the shift linkage. The coupler is hidden under this plate and someone has already snapped off two of the bolts. It looks like this motor has two separate impellers, but I have no idea why. Does anyone know what the second one is for? Let me know in the comments. At least one impeller looks fine, so I'll leave it alone. With the lower unit removed, I can now test how well the starter cranks the engine. But nothing happens. It seems like the starter solenoid isn't activating. Power is reaching the solenoid, but the voltage drops heavily, which suggests that it's seized. I'll I'll drill out the 4 rivets, take off the cover, and inspect the solenoid from the inside. Just like the starter, water got inside and rust seized the solenoid solid. That's sorted. Now let's check the compression and spark on all 3 cylinders. Spark is good. Good spark here too. And we've got spark here too. Before reinstalling the lower unit, I'll coat the impellers with glycerin to protect them during the first startup. I also tested the choke solenoid, but it had no ground connection. Someone had taken it apart and glued it back together with non-conductive adhesive. So I soldered the ground wire to it and connected the other end to the engine block. And it works! Finally, I just need to connect the fuel line and mix the gasoline with oil. This time, I'm using proper 2-stroke oil made for outboard motors. I'll use the primer bulb on the fuel line to prime the fuel system and fill the carburetors. Ha, the impeller's working. Now it's clear that those 2 broken bolts were needed to seal this plate. The cooling water reaches the engine properly, but after flowing through it, it leaks out through the shift linkage access hole. There's a slight fuel leak around the fuel pump gasket. But the engine is still smoking even after it's warmed up. Pressing the plate into place improves the sound, so exhaust is leaking here too. But there seems to be a slight delay in the throttle response. At this point I thought it had finally stopped smoking, but my excitement didn't last long. Now let's hear what it sounds like with the cover on. That's a huge difference, but I can't rev it right now, so we'll have to settle for idle. Now let's see how the compression changed once the engine warmed up. The middle cylinder dropped slightly, but that's probably just measurement error, so no real change. Here's the throttle response again. Could the ignition timing be incorrectly adjusted? What does it sound like when it starts running out of fuel? Like this. And that's where I'll leave it for today. It runs, but there are still a few issues to sort out. Still, not bad for a $50 outboard.